I'm Sansom. I'm the Senior Craft Electrical for Central Maintenance Team and also Senior Right Person, High Voltage and Health and Safety for Southern Waste.
My name is Mark G. I'm the Commissioning Engineer for Wildon Sindall for this project for Cardiff Western District Pumping Station.
As we know, this project has been to replace the 4 existing Blackstone generators with your 3 new Shenton generators. Reason being, the technology controlling the 4 existing Blackstone generators, which is now some 46 years old, was no longer capable of managing the generators in grouping with things like synchronization, load sharing. This is a combined station, so we normally pass forward on average between 500 and 1200 litres a second on a dry day, what we call normal dry weather flows. In storm conditions, which can be 3, maybe 6 times dry weather flows, this station could be reaching a capacity of 9,600 litres a second. 2,000 litres go into to Cockmoors and 7,600 go into storm storage. In the event of those times, we could be called to run 2 generators. In the event of us running 2 generators, they didn't always synchronise. We'd have a reverse power issue and they would both fail.
Shenton offered a turnkey project in terms of they would not only provide, install, commission new generators, they would also remove and dismantle all the ancillary equipment, the fuel tanks, the water tanks, the coolers, because everything went up to the museum, all equipment went up to the museum, and I think that's one of the reasons why Shenton actually were successful in securing this contract. The Morgan Sindall scope of supply for the project was 3 new Shenton generators, 3 new 1.25 MVA generators to replace the 4 number Blackstone Burleys. They were 635 kVA generators.
The COVID-19 restrictions came into force a week before we were due to travel for the factory assessment test at Shenton's. So for me, this was a first in as much as a fact test was conducted online on a Teams setup. It was very enlightening for me to see that amount of detail.
What struck me as being a positive thing from Shenton was the fact that was the energy and the drive that we felt coming through from the FAT through Teams. Teams was new for me, so I was a bit weary of this, a bit apprehensive about actually conducting an FAT through the computer, as it were. Very apprehensive, and in fact I was against it initially, but what came through from the FAT at Andover was the drive and the energy from James and from Derby. I think there was no stone unturned, and anything that we had, any queries that we had, like Rob said, any questions or queries that we had were answered and replied straight away. And the fact that the two youngsters there, the two guys, were running round from one generator to another, back to Graham Wilson, showing the graph and the computer screen of the generators, the printouts, the currents, the voltages. I thought that was absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
The energy for me was just something else. It was just something I'd never come across before. And then that was followed by the SAT, the site acceptance test down here, and equally that went really well with Graham and with James. So we had no issues with that. I know those engines will run, those generators will run. They will run. They will do that. They'll perform as they've been designed to do. I know they will.
It'll certainly mean I can sleep soundly on a rainy night.
And also the teams that we've had actually doing the work from Shenton and from other companies have been superb. Really, really good engineering values and good know-how as well. Especially the likes of, and I'll mention a few names here. I think we had Shenton, James from Shenton, as James Norman has done really remarkably well for us, as well as his subcontractors, who's at Rob Grimstead and his team, as well as Mark Wildon and his team. They were the guys that actually removed the old generators from the generator hall.
I've been watching over Cardiff Western probably for 18 years. It was sentimentally sad to see him go. I'm glad they've gone to an engine museum, to somewhere where they'll be maintained and kept, as opposed to being sold for scrap. That would have been really hard.
Yeah.
You know, writing out what works permit to see someone cut them up.
Yeah.
But I'm glad the way Shentons have managed, overseen and delivered the whole project.
I'm James Norman from Shenton Group, project manager on the Cardiff Pumping Station project with Morgan Sindall and Welsh Water. Part of the project, which came in towards the end, was the removal of the 4 operational Blackstone diesel engines, and this required full strip out from the engine room. And we're here today. I'm here with Mark from Wildon to discuss how that aspect of the project was planned and ultimately delivered. And I'm glad to say it was a complete success. I mean, you take over from that point.
So I'm a director we're wastewater engineers. We're not large diesel moving company. We're not a machinery removal company. But my background is I'm an ex-chief engineer, British Merchant Navy, and I'm used to working with large medium-speed diesel engines. Yes, we're wastewater engineers, but we deal with large mechanical projects. And the Anson Engine Museum, we help out free of charge any of their large removals, just because of our skill set here. So when James contacted us, he's contacting wastewater engineers to remove 4 very large diesel engines, and there's obviously going to be a small element of doubt there.
But just a little bit.
A little bit. So in January last year, in 2020, pre-COVID, we removed a 37-ton diesel generating set, and we had to demolish the end of the building to get the engine out. We had no access to cranes, and so we'd already done a large project within 12 months of this project. The Blackstones, we think there was a lot of people who were frightened by the Blackstones. There was weights being bandied around of 30 tons.
I was told, yeah.
Things like that. And fortunately, with the Anson Engine Museum being located in Stockport, or close to Stockport is where Merley's Blackstone factory was in Hazel Grove. They basically have all of the factory records. So very quickly, we were able to determine the exact engine weight, and the engine weight as a dry engine was 14.8 tons. So because of the link with Anson, we could then confirm the weight. It was not if, buts or maybes. We had a definite weight. When we went to site, we looked at the engines, and because of these engines were so large, and they're not, they were talking about stripping them down. Now the crane and the engine hall is rated at 10 tonnes. The smallest item on the engine is possibly the bed plate with the entablature bolted to it. So to get to 10 tonnes, cylinder heads removed, 8 off, pistons out. The alternator was a single pedestal bearing, so we have issues with supporting that whilst trying to take flywheels out. We then have the bed plate. So for 4 engines, there was approximately 100 lifts with the associated risks, working at height on the engine, and also potentially 1 week per engine.
Yeah, I think the timescale was an important thing, and also one thing you mentioned while we were doing it is the fact that these are 4 working engines right up until the last day. They were literally turned off, I think, 2 weeks before we went in there when our new 3 engines went online. And like you said, and the Anson Museum have subsequently said, if we'd have taken those apart, they may not have gone back together. You know, these are engines that have been in there. I mean, how old?
1975.
1975, yeah, and they're still running. Why would we then take them apart? Now, yes, we could see straight away, and I must admit, after the site meeting, the fears I had, or doubts, sorry, not fears.
What are they messing about?
Yeah, you could tell these guys knew their stuff. I've done enough lifting with Shenton Group to know these guys knew their stuff. So again, those fears were gone. We then obviously had to come up with risk assessments, method statements for getting these out, and we had to allay the fears of Morgan Sindall, really, because Morgan Sindall obviously had quite rightly been told that these engines were going to strip down. So that, of course, suddenly I'm saying to Morgan Sindall, well, no, we don't need to. We've got an engine specialist. So we were able to build risk assessment and method statements, weren't we, and prove what we were going to do. And Mark came up with sketches. I don't think Mark minds saying. Mark created the sketches. I took them to our CAD department, and we were able to draw them into actual drawings that were then issued alongside the RAMs. And you know, basically give Morgan Sindall and Welsh Water the confidence that what we were planning was we could make reality, and we could do it in time and safely.
The engine hall was tiled with quarry tiles, and I put my neck on the block because I said I can get basically a 15-ton engine across a tiled floor and not crack any tiles. Which we actually did.
I think you said you'd buy Morgan Sindall
a pint for every tile
you broke.
So luckily we didn't crack any tiles. For us, traditional machinery skates were not the solution. So the easiest solution for us was to construct the largest kitchen set of drawer runners, and that's basically what we did. We made small rollers out of a settle rod. We looked at a material which was both lightweight, and we did exactly what the Egyptians did. We moved the engine on a set of rollers in 3 locations. We worked out the loadings per 3 railway tracks. The railway tracks could be laid, so we were reliant on them, not the tiled floor. And once the engine had been jacked up, and we're only talking that sort of distance, there was no heavy lifts at this point, it was all using hydraulic jacks, nobody could physically get into any trap zones. Once the engine was on our skating system, if the floor had not been a tiled floor and slightly slippy, we could have pushed the engines.
Yeah, it would have pushed.
Easily.
Yeah, and then obviously Mark got them to the doorway. We then had a crane. What size was the crane?
The crane was about a 100-ton crane.
100-ton crane positioned outside the pumping station, the warehouse door, the roller shutter door. So once it was onto the front section, which was a concrete section, we could then put it onto traditional large machine skates. Basically we winched it slowly to the door, where the crane strops could come onto the front, lift the front up, and then basically as it came out on the skates, the back slings were attached, and then up, once we're in the air, straight onto the transport.
And again, from a risk point of view, we'd removed over 100 lifts with an internal overhead crane. While we were jacking the engines and moving them, in terms of if an engine had dropped, it was only going to drop 2 inches. And from a lifting point of view, it was a full contract lift with a crane company, and there was only 4 lifts.
And I must admit, there was I don't know about you, but there was we had quite an audience at the point where we were lifting the engine out. Quite rightly so. It was quite a monumental moment for Welsh Water and Morgan Sindall, who've been on this project for an extremely long time. And I must admit, as it was lifted out, it was not emotional is the wrong word, but I think it was a lot of relief for one, and also how smoothly it had gone.
Well, it went that smoothly that on the second engine there was nobody there because actually it was quite boring. I think everybody was expecting a disaster. People were looking at the tiles being cracked, and so actually it was a bit of a non-event, which is a credit to the project.
It was brilliant for me. I like non-events, but it was a job well done, and I think it was a credit to all involved. So, like I've said, Graham, RG Installs, Mark and his team, Jay Mackenzie on the transport. The Anson Museum. I know they're very grateful for Welsh Water passing on the machines, and after seeing today,
and also Rob Sansom.
Rob Sansom and Mark,
he had the foresight to go, hang on, these engines have served Cardiff for all these years, let's not scrap them.
No.
And so I think it was his sort of view that the engines should be saved.
Yeah, it's gone really well, and like I just said there, I can see by looking around today and what we have behind us here, these have gone to a very good home and will be looked after.